Okay, today is November 8th, 2025, and tonight it's gonna drop down to the 40s, and then Monday it drops to the 30s, so it's gonna be pretty cold. And I don't want my aloe to possibly just shrivel up and die if we get freezing temperature. So I'm gonna harvest all of these leaves here, and then I'm gonna cut the aloe back, and I'm gonna take it inside. Then I'll bring it back out next year and plant it. And at the same time, I'm also harvesting my persimmons. So here we have some persimmons. I just need to get this done before it gets too cold, because I don't want to harvest fruits when it's freezing outside. So these are giant fuyus. And this tree has been planted 3 years ago from a bare root tree. So each year the fruits get bigger and bigger. So this it's gonna get larger next year, but very productive for a small tree. So we're gonna harvest all of that today. And then this is my fuyu. I'm also going to harvest all of the fruits today. So let's get going, and then I'll show you at the end what we have left with the persimmons and aloe. Okay, this is all of the persimmons that I have left. Man, there's still quite a few of these here. So this is gonna last me for a while. Some of these are gonna go to my parents. They love these stuff. And the rest that I can keep, I'm probably going to dry them up as dry persimmons. And that's the reason why I harvest them this way. That way it's easy to hang. And if you haven't seen a video on how to make dried persimmons, I'll link you to that video that I did. Dried persimmons are amazing, guys. You have to try it. So that is the box that I harvested. So now we're gonna harvest some aloes and then winter melons. So let me show you the winter melons real quick. Okay, so here are the winter melons. That's one over there. I have a small one hanging over there, and a few larger ones that are up in the tree in there, and then some over there. There's a large one behind there. So let me harvest it, and then I will show you what they look like. Okay, so here are the winter melons that I just harvested. Some are pretty good size, a few pretty small. So this one here, look at that, that one's pretty big. These things can get much larger than this, but we're getting to the end of the season, so that's the size that they'll get, and that's it. So now let's go harvest some aloe. Okay, for the aloe, we're gonna cut the leaves, and then we're gonna let the sap drip out, and we're gonna store the leaves inside for multiple months until I can use them all. And then we're also going to cut the plant completely down, take it inside, that way it doesn't die over winter, and then we'll plant it in the next spring. So let's cut these really quick. So here's the top leaves. It does get larger as we go down to the bottom leaves. But you see, like the sap is dripping out. You see the yellow sap? So that's gonna drip out, and then once that's all done dripping, then the wound here is gonna dry up, and then we'll take it inside. Okay, this is the harvest from just one plant. You see, that is quite a lot. It's all these leaves here. You see the sap are seeping out, so we're gonna let those drip out. And then this wound area here will just dry in a couple of days, and then once that's dried, you can store that in a bright area, and the leaves will last up to a year. These are the leaves that I harvested last year right here, and I actually just left them in the grass for experiments, and it's still there, you see? So you don't need to store it, in any controlled area. And especially do not store this in your fridge because believe it or not, the aloe need some lights. The leaves are alive actually, and so if you leave it in a dry area where it can get some sunlight, it'll stay fresh for months and months and months. You'd be surprised. So here is the plant. You can save the pubs if you like. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get my saw. I'm gonna chop that off, and then we're gonna take that inside. Okay, so here is my aloe. I practically just chopped it all off. So I'm gonna take this thing inside, and then I will plant it again next season. Okay, we are also harvesting elephant ears. So these are delicious greens to make soups with. And I just cut it off right there. These are really expensive in the stores. So I went to the store the other day. There's like, you know, like a few, like these right, like these 3 or 4 of these little stems right here. They're like $6. Can't believe it. But anyway, so I have a few small ones here still left. I'm gonna leave this here to see if we can make it through. We're gonna get 35 degrees. I think they should be okay. If it's not freezing, they should be okay. But these things are perennial. They'll come back year after year. Even when it's freezing temperature, they'll just die back, and then the root at the bottom will just grow back. As long as you kind of like cover them up and keep them from freezing out, they'll be fine. So the leaves at the top right here, you don't eat these because they're not edible, but the stems are edible when you cook them. So those are what the tops look like. They're beautiful plants, and they get massive too. So these are here. They're gonna make some nice soup for me. Okay, we are also harvesting peppers, and these are my peach StarrKist. Check that out, guys. And here is my Jay's Peach Goes crossed with a Primo. I need to harvest these also. And these are my Owari mandarin oranges. So I have these to also pick pretty soon. And here we have Malabar spinach seeds. These are the large leaf green variety. And so at the end of the season, they produce a ton of these really unique looking seeds. There are a bunch of these seeds, and so sometimes I would harvest them and dry them for the next season, and sometimes I just let them drop and then they will grow the next season so that I don't have to start the seeds myself. And so let me show you what they look like closer. You see, they look like these little purple berries, and you can use these sort of like as a food dye, or you can use these to grow baby greens for the next year because they produce so many seeds. You see here? Hundreds and hundreds of seeds. And so what I do is I'll collect a bunch of these and I'll throw them in a container for next season, and they grow to be these little baby greens. And then I'll harvest the entire baby greens from top to bottom, and I'll eat those. And they are amazing. So they're not so much microgreens because they do take quite a bit of time to grow, but you eat them as baby greens, and so they're different than this. So they grow like a little stem, and a few leaves come out of that, and they're nice and tender, and man, they are very good and packed with vitamins and all that stuff. So the seeds here, let me show. If I crush the seeds, you see, it has this purple coloring, and that can stain your shirts and stuff like that, your hand especially. It'll stay on your hand for a long time. So that's why it's a good way to dye like rice and stuff. You want to make these beautiful color rice, or you can make it into like a clothing dye. Okay, so here is a raised bed with herbs and peppers and probably a bunch of other things. And my herbs, you see these basil right here? They are around probably 4 feet tall. And to get them to be like that, what I do is I'll propagate a branch. These are all propagated branch. Look at the size of these trunk, guys. That is a basil, the Thai basil. So if you grow them from seed, typically they don't grow that big. But if you grow them from a cutting of a mature, like take a mature branch, and then as the branch produces flowers, you cut the flowers off, and then you keep doing that, and then eventually it's gonna grow that tall, and the branch look like a tree, like a mini tree. Look at that. They're huge. And then you get lots and lots of herbs throughout the season. But the key is take off all of the flowers. Anytime you see flowers, chop them off until you're ready towards the end of the season, and then you can let them flowers, because the bees actually really love these flowers. But yeah, just fertilize them with fish emulsion. They love those. And cut all the flowers off, and then you will get bushes of huge basil with tons and tons of healthy leaves. And if you grow these leaves at home, they taste much better than the ones you can buy at the store, because organically grown basil, you cannot compare that to what you can get in the stores. Okay, I have asparagus patch here. Man, I had so many asparagus this year from this little patch. And the thing with asparagus is they do take a long time, like 3 to 4 years to produce the spears that are big enough for you to harvest. But after that, you can harvest for a long time after that. And if you don't harvest them, they'll grow into these ferns. See, they look like ferns. And you leave these ferns to grow so that it can strengthen the roots, the root system. And then in the wintertime, these would die, so you can compost them. And then the base, the bottom, will strengthen up. It gets bigger and bigger over the years. And so after 3 to 4 years, you're gonna get nice spears you can harvest during the spring all the way up into summer. My asparagus actually produce up until now. Look, see these here? This is a new one here. Because I didn't harvest this guy, it became this, and it's about to sprout out these ferns. But yeah, you get them throughout the year. So we don't use a lot of asparagus, so one patch is way enough for my family. And yeah, they're just low maintenance plants. Once you get them going, you really don't have to do much. Just fertilize them every once in a while, and then of course clean them up at the end of the year, and then add soil if you have a raised bed. So you see, I'm gonna have to add soil because it used up all of the soil this year. So yeah, so that's my asparagus. And inside the aloe pod, you see these beautiful green leaves with purple flowers. These are a very special variety of plant. I forgot what these are called, but we use the leaves to dye dessert, like the rice desserts. If you see like purple looking rice in Vietnamese dishes that are made as desserts, these are the leaves that was used to color the rice. They're very unique. I don't know what else this is used for, but they are so easy to grow. I actually really didn't want to grow these, but I didn't want to just trash them, so I left them here in my aloe. And every season, before winter gets here, I'll cut a few branches and I'll plug them into the soil for the pot that I take inside the garage, which I did for this one last year. and then they will stay dormant. They drop some of the leaves, and as long as it doesn't freeze in the garage, these plants will stay alive. And then next year I take them outside, I grow them in a pot somewhere, and they will look beautiful. But I don't have any other use for these plants. I think they're just great. A friend of mine gave these a branch to me, and so I've grown them ever since, and they're just so cool to have around. So they're easy, and that's why I haven't gotten rid of them. They're just so easy to grow. But anyway, that is what I have going on in the yard. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Okay, just in case you're curious on how I make dry persimmons and how I hang them to dry, I use a very simple method, just using ropes here. So you have these ropes here, and you just go to each section like this, and then you just tie it like so. See? And then you go down the section, and then you tie it again like that. Very simple. And then once you have it at the length that you want it, it's going to be like this, you see? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hang these persimmons like this. And these hooks right here, you see these hooks right here? It allows you to just hook in the persimmon like that, very easily, like that. And so I would hang this to dry. You want to stagger it like that, so when you hang, the persimmon doesn't touch each other. You see it? Kind of stagger it, and then you just hang it dry. And then within 2-3 weeks, the persimmons will be dried, and then you're ready to eat it. So that's how I make the rope. But if you want to see the entire process on how the drying works and all that stuff, make sure you check the link in the video. I mean the link in the description for the video so you can see it.